news and results as part of Wrestling Rants. Baby, yeah! Let's get into it on a Tuesday. Coming back from the weekend in Chicago, and these shows, as you see on the screen, Spring SLUGFEST from Impact Wrestling. Wow, I have to just say, I have been a fan of Impact for a long time. I've been to a lot of shows from this company from, I guess, from about 2009 onward, I think was maybe my first show. TNA show actually in this city, Mankato, Minnesota, that had under 100 people at the event. It was actually a pretty loaded card. The main event was Styles and Samoa Joe, and there was a lot of other talent underneath that was really worthwhile talent. And that was the start. There's been many underwhelming shows from TNA and Impact throughout the years that I've been to. There's been also some pretty strong ones that I've been to in the past. Bound for Glory 2009 from Los Angeles was an excellent one. I went to another Bound for Glory that was, I believe, 2013 in San Diego that wasn't so good. That was the one with AJ Styles and Bully Ray on top of the card. And then intermixed in there, I've been to some house shows that were really excellent. The Vegas shows that I've been to were pretty darn good, including No Surrender, the Impact Plus pay-per-view, and the other one that I went to this would have been 2020, I believe, was Turning Point, I believe it was. It was also a decent show, but I gotta tell you guys, nothing could hold a candle to these two nights of Impact Wrestling in Chicago. This was a fun weekend. I had a phenomenal time. I was front row, ringside, dead center. And if you start watching the episodes this week, you're probably going to see me unmasked on TV. So if you can kind of catch that, I'm dead center, front and center, right in front of that hard cam. One of the nights I'm wearing this shirt. The other night I'm wearing actually a Jericho Cruise shirt. So be on the lookout for that. But just had a great time. So much fan interaction at these shows, being front row ringside as well. A lot of interesting perks that went with the platinum tickets that I bought. Before we get into the rant, let's take a look at one of the things that I got from Impact. One of the nights after the show, they did a really cool deal where you could get a picture with the tag titles on the ramp. So I got that first night. Second night, they did this, which was an Impact kind of portfolio for the fans. Everybody that had a platinum ticket received this. There's a bunch of stuff in here. I guess I'll just open it up, kind of do a look-see here. Some photographs from talent past and present. Deonna Purrazzo. We got Willie Mack, who's no longer with Impact. We also have The Kingdom, who are also no longer in Impact. I also got two autographed photos. This was Eddie Edwards, of course, and then Big Doc Gallows, an autograph of that. And then to top it all off here, they actually gave a part of the ring mat, which is kind of a unique item. See if you can see who this is. This is Mia Yim, the HBIC. So all kind of, I guess, archived talent, we could call it, with Eddie Edwards and Deonna Purrazzo being the exception here. I thought it was kind of a nice little touch that they gave this out to all platinum ringside fans. They also did a giveaway for a ring skirt, which I thought was a cool idea. Used turnbuckle pad and a $100 gift card at the merchandise stand at the show. So all in all, I thought those were pretty cool little incentives for platinum ticket holders, and quite frankly, I'm going to get into that platinum ticket kind of thing again when they come back to Chicago in July for Chicago Heat at the same location that these shows were at, which was, if I grab my notes here, the Cicero Stadium in Chicago, which I'd never been to before. It took me a while to find it, but I'm glad I did. This was a really fun venue for pro wrestling. I think it held maybe around 2,000 total capacity, maybe 2,500. By no means were these sold out shows, by the way. In fact, they had a lot of areas kind of tarped off, it seemed like, somewhat. So I think overall, I did just kind of an estimate on crowds both nights at Cicero Stadium. First night, I think, was a little bit more than the second night. I counted about 1,000 to maybe 1,300 in attendance. The second night, maybe about like 800 to 1,000 roughly. They're just estimates. I could be way off on this, but this was just visually seeing who was all in the crowd. That was kind of my gauge for it. Obviously, these episodes all will air on Access consecutively in the next 4 weeks. So we're looking at May 4th, May 11th, May 18th, and May 25th. These are all lead-ins to the Under Siege pay-per-view, which is actually on May 26th. So this is the same weekend as not Bound for Glory, but Double or Nothing, AEW in Las Vegas, which I will be at that show. So that'll be the next big Wrestling Rants road trip. Vegas, I'm on my way in about 3 weeks. I can't wait. And on top of that, WWE has 2 separate pay-per-views that weekend as well. The one in Saudi Arabia and the NXT pay-per-view. So that's going to be a loaded weekend of wrestling, no question about it. We'll get into what basically were most of the Under Siege matches that I think were set at these tapings. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first and foremost, a couple notes from these shows. As has been come out now, not only was Mercedes Moné at least the Friday show, I think she was at the Saturday show as well, supporting Trinity Fatu, who obviously appeared at these shows. We'll talk about that in a moment. But also, CM Punk not only appeared last Monday in Chicago at the Allstate Arena backstage, I guess trying to mend fences, trying to get in good graces within the industry. I guess I kind of figured that's what was going on here as well, as CM Punk showed up on the Saturday show, apparently invited by Mercedes Moné, and was playing Uno apparently in the backstage with a lot of talent. There was a few different talent that dropped photos from Punk being in the back. It was Jordan Gray. She had a Twitter post with Punk. Also, Ricky Morton, who's a road agent for Impact Wrestling now, along with a litany of other talent, like, for instance, Lance Storm. He also had a picture with Punk as well, giving him props. So, by all indication, it seemed like the backstage environment was very positive. Everybody really liked having Punk there. If you recall, CM Punk used to be in TNA way, way back in the day. So, I don't know if he has some connection to maybe Scott D'Amore still after all these years. Hard to really say. It was very much a surprise to hear that he was at this show. And when I was at this show on Saturday, the ringside was all a talk about that Punk is backstage. Is he maybe going to come out? Could he maybe do an unannounced appearance? Didn't happen, as it were, but still, talk of the town, buzz of the wrestling industry was definitely this weekend here for Impact. And this was probably one of the more newsworthy and noteworthy weekends in Impact history, quite frankly, with everything going on from Mercedes to Punk to, obviously, let's get into it, the debut of Trinity Fatu in Impact. And I have to say, it was a home run from being there in the crowd. The crowd was absolutely lit up for Trinity and everything going with her. Just an electric crowd, too, I have to say. Once again, Chicago impresses me with their wrestling fandom. This was no exception. They were on their feet and absolutely aghast in a good way for Trinity Fatu appearing. They did the blacklight entrances. You've probably seen a couple of the videos that I dropped about Trinity. I have to make note real quick, too, before we move forward, that an executive from Impact Wrestling contacted me over the weekend asking me to kindly pull some of the videos that I dropped that showed match finishes, that showed major angles that happened on the show, and maybe long-form videos of maybe 2 or 3 minutes of in-ring action. I was told to pull them until the episodes air specifically for those matches or those segments. So I did pull some stuff. I left some stuff up that seemed fairgrounds according to this Impact executive. So look on down the road, especially Thursday nights, I'm going to be dropping new videos from these tapings. after they air on Access. So just keep that in mind, that there is more content from these weekend shows to be dropped. I'm just trying to basically play fair with Impact Wrestling. I really appreciate this executive that reached out to me and just simply asked me to refrain from posting some of the videos instead of doing the copyright strikes. I wholeheartedly appreciate that, because I've dealt with that plenty with AEW, for example. Them just copyright striking like crazy, specifically Fight TV on that end. So kudos to Impact. Thank you, Garrett Kidney, for reaching out to me to give me a heads up on this, and I'm more than happy to work with you guys. So I want to support your product. I want to help promote you guys, because I think you're doing a bang-up job right now with everything going on in Impact. So Trinity's debut, getting back into it, was a definite hit in the crowd. Both nights the crowds were losing their minds over the entrance of Trinity specifically. Second night, they handed out black light tubes and stuff to us, so that was a cool kind of little thing that you'll be seeing on Impact TV in probably about 3 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now. That moment where everybody's got the black lights going on, the neon lights, really made for a really cool aesthetic at ringside and within this ring here. So all in all, just a real huge success. I thought the promo Trinity cut on the first night was very well done. We'll talk about it in the results, but Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace got involved in that. Later on in the show, Trinity made the save for Grace and Purrazzo in a match against the Coven, which unfortunately Purrazzo and Grace did not win, but Trinity came out to make the save in the post-match. Then moving on to the next night, Trinity wrestled in her first match in Impact, Highland King of the Coven, and I thought this match was really good. Really excellent match. Both ladies worked super hard and super physical. There was a lot of wardrobe malfunctions, which you aren't going to see when they do edits on this match. Trinity's top kept falling down. Titty kept popping out. It happened, folks. And yeah, we'll be definitely seeing a lot of edits in that match, probably because of that. Another part that Trinity was involved in on the tapings was an angle after her match on Saturday where they set up Giselle Shaw, who wasn't at these tapings for some reason. Giselle Shaw against Trinity at Under Siege on the 26th. Jay Vidal showed up and made the challenge on behalf of Giselle Shaw, and Trinity actually laid out Jay Vidal in that segment that was on Saturday. Let's get into just a few other items of note before we get into the results here. Both nights concluded with matches that were, I guess, set and will be dropped on the Impact Plus subscription site under some sort of moniker. I was not familiar with this, but Main Event Mondays. So they dropped pretty high-end matches on Mondays exclusively on Impact Plus. And on both tapings on Friday and Saturday, the show ended with these main events. The first one was Motor City Machine Guns against Eddie Edwards and Kenny King. Second night main event was Deonna Purrazzo defending the Knockouts Championship against Killer Kelly. So just a heads up on that, if you are an Impact Plus subscriber, those matches will be dropped probably very soon. I would guess maybe already on this past Monday or coming up this following Monday or somewhere down the horizon here. You're going to be seeing those matches. Both were okay. I didn't feel like, particularly with the Machine Guns match, that felt like a true main event. Killer Kelly and Purrazzo, I thought, were pretty damn good. That felt a little bit more like a main event. Also, a big angle occurred with Rhino. He was stretchered out prior to, or actually after his match with Steve Maclin for the Impact World title. I got the vibe Rhino was already injured going into this match. I don't know if something happened on the Friday taping. He was in a six-man. He seemed to be working okay in that match. But on Saturday, he was moving really slow against Maclin to the point where I felt like there was an injury already happened prior to the match happening, and then they played upon it in the match. But near the finish of that match, the bout actually broke down significantly. Rhino was moving really slow. The referee was talking back and forth with Rhino and Maclin. I feel like they maybe cut some parts of the match and rushed to a finish. And then after the match, Macklin did a complete annihilation of Rhino's ankle, Pillmanized it, and brought out a shovel and clobbered. Rhino was put out on a stretcher, so that's it for him for a while. I would assume there's a legitimate injury there that led to all this, for sure. Also, there was another segment with Steve Macklin where he claimed that he killed PCO. We didn't see any footage of this, so this is probably going to be something that they're taping backstage or in and around the Chicago area. Some sort of angle that we're going to be seeing down the road on one of these episodes of Impact. As it were, PCO did not get killed by Macklin. They actually teased that a different person would be wrestling Macklin and Under Siege because PCO was dead or killed. Scott D'Amore came out, jabber-jawed with Macklin significantly in quite a long in the 2 segment, and teased more heat between D'Amore and Macklin as well. And at the end of that segment, PCO came out, basically cleaned house on Steve Macklin and kind of his minions at the time, Mahabali Shera and Champagne Singh. So we'll talk about that in the results here in just a moment. The other big note that happened on these tapings was Rosemary did not appear. However, her earlier gimmick before Rosemary came around, Courtney Rush, appeared out of nowhere. Apparently, there's some sort of storyline that we're going to be seeing week to week with James Mitchell and Rosemary kind of going into the dark side again. And apparently she comes out as Courtney Rush. So I don't know how they explain how they get there, but here we are. And Courtney Rush was the former gimmick of Rosemary before Rosemary came around in Canadian independent leagues and things like that. So some people didn't really pick up on this. Other people did in the crowd. We'll see how this goes. And another thing to note, a lot of these things that happen on these tapings were not accurately depicted in the spoilers I read online. So you're probably going to be hearing about some more stuff that really wasn't put out there on the official spoilers by PW Insider, which seemed to be put all over the internet from that main report. One more thing before we get into the results, let's talk about what I feel is the card for Under Siege. They seem to set up most of this stuff on these tapings, so let's get into it. A few of these matches were already announced. That's PCO Steve Macklin for the World Championship, Jordan Grace, Deanna Prowse for the Knockouts Championship. They just recently announced Trey Miguel and Chris Sabin, which was set up with an angle on this show after Trey Miguel beat Laredo Kid. Sabin came out, made the challenge, cut a hell of a promo on Trey Miguel. You guys are going to really enjoy that. This will probably air on the 11th or the 18th of May, but it was a really, really good promo to set up Trey Miguel, Chris Sabin, X Division Championship at Under Siege. We also seem to have set up the Tag Team Championships, ADC, Chris Bay and Ace Austin, a Bullet Club against the Good Hands. Also set up, as I talked about prior, was Trinity and Giselle Shaw. Eddie Edwards and Kazarian seem to be in the pipeline based off of the results of this show. Nick Aldis and Kenny King definitely was set. They even acknowledged that in the ring. Kenny King cut a promo on Aldis at one point on the tapings. I think it was Saturday. A possibility of a few other matches here. Moose and Yuya Yamura. Possibly they seem to be exchanging a lot of stuff with those guys in 2 separate matches on Friday and Saturday in tag matches. Also, Sami Callihan and Rich Swann against the Design. There may be a third person involved in that. I don't know who it would be. But there was a tease that the Design is kind of outweighing Callihan and then Rich Swann joining up with them. So there's probably going to be another talent in the mix in a 6-man and Under Siege. And then probably we're going to see for the Knockouts Tag Championships, the Coven against Jessica and the aforementioned Courtney Rush, possibly. We'll see where they go with that. All in all, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 matches on the Under Siege card. That seems probably straight up, that is more likely what we will be seeing on May 26th on Impact Plus and the Ultimate Insiders on YouTube, which I subscribe to. Okay, without any further ado, let's get into the detailed spoilers from both the 28th and the 29th. if you're already still with me at this point, I don't need to say it, but if you don't want to get spoiled on shit, don't go any further. You probably already got spoiled plenty on stuff happening from just what I've said before. So 14 matches on each card, each night. That include 2 BTI pre-show matches before, which I did not get to see. I heard the results, but I did not actually get to see the matches. I came in right as the actual Impact on Axis taping started. And then also at the end of each show, like I said, main event Monday match was taped at the end of each one. So some of these things were taped probably out of sequence. So don't take, for instance, the April 28th results to be straight up the next 2 weeks of Impact on Axis. I don't think that's the case. There was a few matches, in fact, where I saw advertising on the video board that it was right before Under Siege, which would presumably be like the day before that it would air. So let's get into it. The BTI matches: Ace Austin over Zicky Dice, Laredo Kid over Jack Price. Like I said, did not see either of those matches. Then we get into the Impact on Axis tapings. Moose and Brian Myers got the win over Bhapinder, Gajar, and Yuya Yamura. I believe Moose pinned Gajar in this one for the finish. We got to match number 2. This is a match that was not talked about in any spoilers I saw online. And that was Sami Callihan over Connor, or Big Con, or whatever you call him, of the Design. A post-match angle actually happened as well, where all of the kind of sort of recruits of the Design, they were wearing the yellow hoodies. They ran out, I was like probably 20 of them, and maliciously attacked Sami Callihan, laid him out. This presumably set up Rich Swann joining up with Callihan, as happened later in the tapings. Match number 3 was a 6-man involving PCO and also world champion Steve Macklin. PCO had 2 mystery partners. That was Heath and Rhino, and they worked against Macklin and his tag partners, Champagne Singh and Mahabali Shera. Finish was, I believe, PCO pinning Champagne Singh with a PCO salt, I think, for the finish. On that one, pretty standard 6-man. It was kind of vanilla, kind of basic. We get into match 4 on the Access tapings. Jody Threat over Alicia Edwards. Yet another match I did not see covered in the spoilers online. Then we get to match 5, and this is when the show starts really getting good. Jonathan Gresham over Speedball Mike Bailey, and I believe the 3rd one-on-one match, or maybe the 4th. This will actually air this coming Thursday. They did announce this ahead of time. Tremendous match. I think between this one and there was a match they had on the pay-per-view before Rebellion that was really, really excellent. This match that maybe eclipsed it. Possibly. I'd have to watch them both back-to-back to really compare. But what an excellent match. This was the first really standout match of the taping. Gresham over Bailey. Then we got Trinity. They didn't really announce this ahead of time in the arena, but all of a sudden lights go out. Trinity shows up. The crowd loses their damn mind. She cuts a great promo. Deanna Praza first comes out, gets in Trinity's face a little bit because Trinity wants to get in the mix for the World Championship. I think we're probably going to see that at Slammiversary. Jordan Grace then comes out. She gets into it with both women a little bit. They teased a triple threat for sure, and I could definitely see that happening at Slammiversary for sure. Just a really, really awesome segment there for sure. Masha Slamovich in the next match went over Killer Kelly. I really liked this match as well. These two meshed really well in the ring. I actually would like to see a program with these two. If they keep going on it, I would not mind. Nick Aldis over Shelton Jean. This is the new protege of Kenny King. I believe he was also on Big Brother Canada, I read. Anyway, not much of a match here, but this was technically the first Impact match for Nick Aldis upon returning to Impact. Good Hands went over to Kay next. Boy, I gotta tell you guys, Black Taurus was so over with this crowd in Chicago. It was unbelievable. And what did they do? They had him do the pinfall job in this match. Very, very unfortunate on that. Dirty Dango went over Johnny Swinger. Swinger still can't get that elusive first win. Just ain't happening. Joe Hendry was with Dirty Dango. By the way, he was injured, so he wasn't wrestling on the show at all. Rich Swann went over Angels of the Design, match 10. Afterwards, the Design once again laid out Callahan and Rich Swann. So, again, I think that's set up for Under Siege, at least in a tag, maybe a sixth man. Match 11 then was for the Knockouts Tag Championships. The Coven went over Deonna Purrazzo and Jordan Grace. There was a spot where Jordan Grace was going to hit Kylan King, I believe it was, and Deonna Purrazzo had her kind of held. She basically moved. Grace hit Purrazzo, or maybe it was the other way around. I think it was that Grace hit Purrazzo, sent her out of the ring. That led to the pinfall win for the Coven over Jordan Grace. Afterwards, Trinity came out to make the save as the Coven was laying out both talents. So once again, teasing that three-way coming up down the road, probably at Slammiversary. Then the main event Monday, main event was Motor City Machine Guns over Eddie Edwards and Kenny King. Decent little match. Nothing to call home for. I think the crowd was a little bit taken back by this being the main event, by the way, too. Let's get into April 29th's results from the second night of action in Chicago. BTI matches were as follows. Diener and Big Con over Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice. Sammy Callahan over Shogun. I'm not familiar with that talent. I wonder if he's a local Chicago talent, possibly. Then we get into the Impact and Access tapings. Trey Miguel over Laredo Kid to retain that X Division Championship in a pretty damn good match. This is another standout match in the card. Chris Sabin came out and challenged Trey, as I talked about before. Steve Macklin defended the world title in the next match, which was announced as a main event for one of the Access taping episodes. Just a heads up on that this will main event one of the shows. Macklin went over Rhino. I talked about it before. Rhino appeared injured in the match, like legitimately, and then he was working the injury as well. Afterwards, post-match attack by Macklin included multiple chair shots, and then culminating Rhino's ankle with a shovel. Ouch! It was a very effective angle, by the way. Macklin got a lot of heat. Jody Threat in another match over Chicago talent Sierra. A lot of people were into Sierra. It was a very quick match, however. Jason Hotch surprisingly went over Ace Austin. This sets up the Good Hands getting that title shot. Trinity in a phenomenal match over Kylan King. You all got to check this out. Her first match was awesome. Real good. Here was a match that really overachieved as well. I really suggest checking this out when the matches air. That's Alex Shelley, Yuya Yamura, Jonathan Gresham over Eddie Edwards, Moose, and Kazarian. This was an all-out sprint of a match. Really good stuff. Kazarian and Edwards were teasing, getting at it. I seem to think that's going to happen at Under Siege. Alex Shelley got the win over Eddie Edwards, also on a heads up on that. Chris Sabin against Speedball Mike Bailey, the best match of both nights. Hands down. This match was so good, and there was a point where there was about a 2 or 3 minute window near the end of this match where it went straight up into overdrive and hit another fucking level of awesome. Kenny King and Shelton Jean over DK. Crazy Steve took the pin from Kenny King. Nick Aldis and Kenny King got into it a little bit afterwards. Taylor Wilde went over Jessica in a straight-up squash under a minute. Courtney Rush came out to make the save for Jessica. They embraced. They're back together. Chris Bay went over John Schuyler in another match with the Good Hands and ABC. Jordan Grace in a quick squash over Alicia Edwards. And then we got to end the show. Deonna Purrazzo over Killer Kelly for the Knockouts Championship. A solid main event. Better than the Machine Guns match, in my opinion, on night one. All in all, what a tremendous weekend. I'm going back in July. You all will check out plenty of content from that coming up on Chicago Heat at the end of July. So be looking for that for sure. And that's it. Everything from Impact's weekend, Spring Slugfest, was a success, I think. I hope y'all enjoy the episodes coming up. I sure loved being there at ringside, and looking forward to more Impact shows coming up this year for sure. All right, everybody, come on back. We got top 10 takes on a Tuesday later on. We're going to be talking all about the WWE draft. So stay with us. Come on back later on. Right here. Wrestling. Rams, baby.